I remember hearing a knock at the door. Richard got out of bed, and that's when I saw the police officer standing in my bedroom doorway. I could see his gun in his holster. I was in shock.
Louise Beeston and her husband Richard Boyle were raided by the Australian Taxation Office and the Australian Federal Police in the early hours of April 2018.
I wasn't allowed to watch them go through my things. I had to sit in the living room with the police officer there. They went through all of our laptops, not just our phones. Nothing can prepare you for that.
I think it was middle of the afternoon, and I got a call from the Federal Police, and they said that Richard Boyle's home had been raided and that my tax records were found there. It's obviously extremely concerned.
Dirk Fielding's world collided with Richard Boyle's when he sent a distressing fax to the ATO in May 2017.
I literally begged. I needed help. I wasn't trying to avoid the tax. All I was saying was that I just needed to get back on my feet, and that's when Richard contacted me.
Fielding's publishing business of 35 years was in serious trouble.
In April 2016, I had an aneurysm on my vertebral artery in my brain that ruptured. As anybody knows, that's virtually a death sentence. Not many people make it into hospital.
It was a long road to recovery.
I was one of those people who had to learn how to walk again, how to swallow.
His wife Kay had to take over the business. An employee took advantage of his absence and began defrauding them.
It was horrific. It was just like being in a nightmare. You just wanted to wake up from it and have things go back to where they were.
Then the tax office came knocking.
Dirk, do you remember when they first garnished our account back in May of 2018 against all the other tax?
A garnishee is a debt collection tool that allows the tax office to take money from a taxpayer's bank account when it believes tax is owed.
The ATO took out 100% of the money in our account.
How desperate was your situation back then?
My situation was extremely desperate. My family and my business is my life. I have been in this building for 35 years. This is my identity, and to have all that taken away from me, it was a very traumatic time.
Richard Boyle was working as a debt collector in the Adelaide branch of the ATO. He decided to help him out by lifting the garnishee and setting up a repayment plan.
It was just pure relief. It was the difference between closing the doors and being able to trade, and we're still here today.
Fielding wasn't the only taxpayer Boyle helped. In October 2017, he was so concerned by some of the ATO's heavy-handed practices that he lodged an official whistleblower complaint. When his complaint was dismissed, he went public on Four Corners. What was so abhorrent about issuing standard garnishees? Why was it unethical?
That meant, and I stated, that we may be shutting down the wrong businesses and causing great distress to the community, and possibly even pushing people towards suicide that needed our compassion, as opposed to the people that we should rightly be targeting with standard garnishees.
He highlighted an email sent to 12 staff towards the end of a shift.
The last hour of power is upon us. That means you still have time to issue another 5 garnishees, right?
I was horrified.
Fielding was contacted by Four Corners before the program aired. Concerned, he called the ATO and asked for Boyle.
I rang the ATO and I asked for Richard Boyle, and I got asked a few questions. I said, hey, look, Four Corners has been on the phone to me. Things blew up from there.
A few weeks later, Boyle's home was raided.
The federal police contacted me and they said that they had just raided Richard Boyle's home and that my tax records had been found in his home.
9 months on, Boyle was charged with offences, including taping private conversations without consent and taking photos of taxpayer information. If found guilty of the 24 offences, he will serve a cumulative 46 years in jail.
I've got to wear some of the responsibility, Adele.
You're carrying a lot of guilt.
Absolutely. Yep. I feel terrible. I feel absolutely terrible for Richard, who's put his life on the line to help me, and he is being persecuted to such an extent. It's just insanity.
For 5 years, Dirk Fielding has tracked Richard Boyle's life through the media, and he can no longer sit in silence. Last year, he wrote to me, and in the letter he said, I begged for help, and Richard helped. I'm to blame.
Richard did the right thing by me. He did what he had to do.
What keeps me going is my music. It is a form of escape, absolutely. You know, whether it's playing music or teaching music, you have to give your all if you want to do it well. Music has saved my life, actually. Music saved my life. It was shocking to me that my husband could be considered on the same level in terms of charges, along with murderers and serial killers. It's unfathomable. My brain won't even allow me to. Yeah, sorry.
Boyle declined to be interviewed for this story for legal reasons, but his wife agreed to share the nightmare that began when he spoke up over 5 years ago.
It's been very difficult for me to have to go to work and leave Richard at home. There's some days when I'm at school and, for instance, he won't answer his phone. Like, I'll try and get in contact with him. I'm so relieved when I finally do get through to him and I walk through that front door and give him a massive hug, because, yeah, that's the kind of toll it's taken on me personally. It's just like, is my husband still alive? Is he going to be dead when I arrive home because of the stress that we've both been put through for years and years?
With criminal charges, Boyle has been unable to work.
The hardest part of all of this is the fact that there's no end in sight. Like, we're in our 6th year now. 6 years of this. Like, we can't get on with our lives. We haven't had children. Like, we've had to put our life effectively on hold for years.
Can you ever imagine life being normal?
I don't know what normal is. It's been that long.
Richard Boyle, stand with Richard Boyle, stand with.
Boyle is one of 2 whistleblowers facing criminal charges by the Commonwealth.
Whistleblowers make Australia a better place. They should be protected, not punished.
Kieran Pender is a senior lawyer at the Human Rights Law Centre, which advocates for whistleblowers.
If Richard Boyle goes to jail for exposing wrongdoing, that will have a real chilling effect on whistleblowers everywhere. People won't speak up about wrongdoing. People already aren't speaking up about wrongdoing because this is what they see, that it's not a good society to live in where people go to jail for telling the truth.
In an attempt to stop the trial going ahead, Boyle's lawyers tried to get immunity from prosecution by testing the law on whistleblower protections. They lost the case, but are now appealing.
Richard's case is a really significant test case for all current and future Australian whistleblowers, so it was really important for us at the Human Rights Law Centre to advance a positive argument to say to the Court of Appeal, in Richard's case, we need a better interpretation that protects whistleblowers.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the saying is an FORJ stops democracy decay.
Former Senator Rex Patrick has been following Richard Boyle's case since the start.
I can't imagine a situation where Richard Boyle is sitting in jail and there isn't public outrage.
Patrick launched a Senate inquiry to find out why the ATO had disregarded Boyle's internal whistleblowing.
The Senate found that the investigation was superficial in nature. They were words that I could get bipartisan support on. I would have simply said it was botched.
The ATO watchdog, the Inspector General of Taxation, held an inquiry that found problems at the Adelaide branch for a limited period, which were addressed when it was raised.
Only after he was charged was it acknowledged by the Inspector General of Taxation that the ATO were operating in a manner that was egregious and harmful to businesses. This whole thing is a Shakespearean tragedy.
The ATO said in a statement it was not appropriate to comment on specific matters which were currently before the court. Being a whistleblower in Australia is only for the brave-hearted.
People cheer whistleblowers, but they don't employ them.
Jeff Morris is one of the country's most celebrated whistleblowers after going public in 2013 on a financial planning scandal inside the Commonwealth Bank.
That's just the start.
He's become a mentor for whistleblowers like Boyle and appears at events like this one in August this year, lobbying for stronger protections.
It's a very hard journey and it's a very lonely journey. And all institutions seem to, unfortunately, behave in the same way. In that when they're under threat, when they're threatened by the truth, they close ranks, they start smearing the whistleblower, trying to discredit him, spreading the most appalling lies about them, and normally seeking ways to attack them.
Morris is concerned the Commonwealth is persecuting whistleblowers like Boyle.
The ultimate irony is that now millions of taxpayer dollars are being squandered in this awful pursuit of him through the court system, seeking to impose a criminal penalty on a man who exposed wrongdoing within one of our Commonwealth Government institutions and has changed things for the better. It's a terrible thing that's being done to him. It's a shameful thing that's being done to him. And I think most Australians would agree that this is just not right.
Morris isn't the only voice calling for change. In recent months, there's been a groundswell in support for stronger whistleblower protections.
What you're seeing here today is the whole of the crossbench uniting and saying to the Albanese government, drop the charges against Mr.
When
Boyle.
will you fix whistleblower protection
Treat the whistleblower as a hero, not a villain.
The prosecutions are having a chilling effect on whistleblowing in Australia.
There are also growing calls for the Attorney General, Mark Dreyfus, to use his powers to pardon Boyle.
The Attorney General has indicated in the past he only wants to do this, use the provisions in that Act for exceptional circumstances. But I can't imagine a more exceptional circumstance where you take someone who did the right thing, they did the right thing, and are now being put through the courts at great personal expense, at great psychological cost, and at great harm to the public interest. Stop these prosecutions, Mr. Dreyfus.
If I had a chance to say something to Mark Dreyfus, it would be stop. Richard did the right thing by me. He did what he had to do. I keep feeling that common sense is going to prevail, and that's part of the reason why I'm sitting here now. I'm saying enough is enough.
The Attorney General has already used his powers for one of 3 whistleblowers on trial.
The government did the right thing by stopping one. They need to do the right thing and stop these other 2 before people who are doing the right thing by exposing government wrongdoing go to jail.
The Attorney General declined an interview, but he maintains the power to discontinue proceedings is reserved for very unusual and exceptional circumstances. Louise Beeston has written a letter hoping it will make a difference.
Dear Prime Minister, Attorney General, my husband, Richard Boyle, is on trial for telling the truth. Every day we wake up and wonder when this nightmare will end. You have the power to stop this injustice. I plead with you to drop the case and let Richard and I get on with our lives. All Richard ever did was tell the truth. I've always supported Richard from day one. I knew when he did what he did, blowing the whistle, that it was the right thing for him to do. Because that's who he is. That's who we are. And if we're going to be true to ourselves, that's the price that we've chosen to pay.